All right. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to use one of the enemy scripts called the laser rotator. Now, there's something I didn't show you in the last video that I should have showed you, which was how to save. So you'll notice right now, uh, this is the name of our scene that we just created, and it was untitled. That means it hasn't been saved yet. So you go to File, Save, or you can hit Command Save or Control S, and that will save it for you. So we're going to save it. Basically, you pick a name for it. We're going to call this test scene. Click Save. And then down here in your project, in the Assets folder, you'll see that it's been saved. So then whenever you come into Unity and you want to open up the scene, you open up this test scene. So if you come into Unity and everything's blank, come down here into the project, open up your test scene, and we're ready to go. So this will also be the case with any scenes that you make for different levels that you want in your game. Whenever you want to try something new without messing up what you're doing right now, you can just make a new scene. And you can do that by clicking File, Save Scene As, and then just pick a new name, and you'll have a new scene. So the first enemy that I'm going to show you how to use is the laser rotator. Now, it's not very much fun to be running around on this white plane. So before we make the enemy, we're going to add a couple walls, and I'm going to show you how to make the walls work with jumping so that you don't stick to them. And then once we're done with that, I'm going to walk you through how to set up the enemy. So we're going to create some walls. So we'll go up here to Game Object, 3D Object, Cube, and that will make me a little cube floating out here in the middle of nowhere. So to start with, I want to make this cube a different color than the floor. The floor right now is just this white color, and the player is the same white color. So you'll notice down here in the package that you unzipped in the first video, there's this folder called Materials. Materials basically indicate the color and texture and stuff like that of different objects in the scene. So let's make the player dark gray. So we'll take this dark gray material, we'll drag it up to the, oops, I dragged it onto the cube by accident. We'll drag it to the player. You can either drag it up here into the hierarchy, or you can drag it here into the scene view, and you'll see how it changes. We're going to go up into the hierarchy though. Let it go, and now the player's gray. Let's make the ground light gray because that bright white color is a little too bright. So we'll take light gray, we'll drag it up to the ground. So I have a touchpad here, so it makes it a little difficult. That's dark gray, light gray. There we go. Don't use a touchpad, kids. Light gray on the ground. There we go, light gray. So that makes it a little easier to see what's going on. Then we'll take the walls and we'll also make the walls a dark color. So let's take the dark gray and we'll drag that to the cube we just made. And that will make the cube a darker color. Now, let's drag the cube. So you can, to switch from moving, rotating, and scaling, you can either click these up here, or you can press keys on the keyboard. So W will switch to move, E will switch to rotate, and R will switch to scale. So we'll go to move, drag this thing so it's in front of the player. We're going to go to scale, and we're going to scale this up so that it's a wall. Basically enough to clip through the ground. We'll make it a bit wider, and we'll move it a bit further in front of the player. So let's see. We'll round these numbers off. We'll go with 13x, 5y, and then it's placed at, let's go with 11. Save your work, and then now we've got a wall. Now, one of the things that is weird about Unity is by default, everything sticks to everything else. It has friction. So if I come up here to this wall and I jump against it, you see I kind of stick to it. It slows me down. It's not ideal. So what we want to do, press escape, stop playing. I'm going to change the cube's name to wall, and then I need to give it a physics material that will make it slidey so that you don't stick to it as much. So if I come down here into the project, under Assets, there's this file called Wall Physics Material. So we can, in the collider for this wall, there's this little material box here for a physics material. We can drag that there, or we can click on this little circle and click Wall Physics Material, and now we have that set. So now, when I move, let's move a little faster. Moving at 4, let's move it about 6. Press play. So now when we move to the wall, and I jump against it, it doesn't get me stuck to it. There's no friction. It's all gone. You can see that when I click on this wall physics material, it has no friction, right? And just a normal amount of bounciness. So that's why this works this way. If you want to play around with the friction on the walls, go ahead and change these values and see how it works. But just for the default, we're not going to mess with that. All right. So let's make another wall. To do so, we're going to select this wall, and we're going to hit Command or Control and D, and that's going to duplicate the wall. And then we can drag it, rotate it. Let's rotate it 90 degrees on the y-axis, and then let's move it so that it's on the side. So we're going to make a little box. We're going to duplicate it again, and then drag it over here. And now we've got a little alcove for the player. And then if you press play, you can see the alcove. You can move around inside of it. You don't stick to the walls. And that's because when we duplicate this, it keeps all of the settings that we had before. It keeps the gray material we were using. It keeps the wall physics material, and that's all great. Now, I personally don't like, once you make 100 walls, this list is going to get really long, and I don't like that very much because it makes the view messy and difficult to deal with. So what I like to do is basically put them in a folder. So to do that, you click Create up here, Create Empty, and that's going to make you an empty game object. It's a game object with no scripts on it, right? We're going to call that level geometry, which means the polygons in the level, the walls, and the ground. So I'm going to select the walls and drag them under level geometry. I'm going to select the ground and drag it under level geometry. And now I have this little flag I can use to open and shut that. So it keeps my scene clean. I'm going to save. And now we're going to place a new enemy. So this enemy is the laser rotator enemy that you saw in the example script. We're going to create a new 3D object that's a sphere. And we're going to move it so it's in front of the player. And let's move it so that it's down at about the level of the ground. So it clips the ground just a little bit. Okay. We're going to call the sphere laser rotator. And then we're going to add the script to it. We're going to add component, laser rotator. And that by itself will do everything that you need to do in order to make it work. I'm going to move it a little bit more. So it's about 5.5 here. And yeah, negative 0.7 works. So we'll save that. You'll notice here in the scene view, you can see there's this little red line coming out of the laser rotator. And what that is that tells you how long the laser is. And that laser is going to rotate around this thing. So if you click on laser rotator and you change, say, the length of it, that line will get longer or shorter. So that's how you make the line longer and tell how long it is. Damage, this is how much damage the player will take if he collides with the laser. Rotation speed is how fast the laser rotates, and I'll show you that in a second. We already did line length. Line color, this is the color of the laser line. It's red because lasers are usually red, but you can have it be whatever you want. And stop on collide means that if you have that checked and you have this, let's say you have your line be really long, right, so that it goes through that wall, right? When you press play, you'll notice that the laser doesn't actually go through the wall. It stops at the wall. If I were to change stop on collide and press play, the laser will go right through the wall, or it should. All right, so hopefully that'll be fixed by the time you guys edit this. But yeah, so if it's not checked, it should go through the wall, and if it is checked, it will stop at the wall. So I'll run into it and show you. So we got over here, we got this little laser. I can jump over it, or I can run into it, and my player will take damage. Now if I take enough damage to die, which should happen soon, I'll show you what happens. There, I died, and now it resets the level. All right, so you'll notice that the lighting changed when you reset the level. That's a peculiarity of Unity. When you actually make your build, that shouldn't happen, but it'll happen in the editor. So, all right, so that's the laser rotator. I'll show you how the speed works. I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory, but if I click on the laser rotator, you'll see how fast it's rotating here. If I change the rotation speed, I can make it rotate faster, slower, and then when I get to the other way, it starts rotating backwards. So that's how rotation works. So in this video, we covered making walls, making them so that you don't stick to them, which is ideal, and then making the laser rotator enemy. And then hopefully by the time you guys get this script, this stop on collide will work. But if it doesn't, well, that's a lot of fun anyway. So in the next one, we're going to talk about some different kinds of enemies, and these will be enemies that shoot. So we'll see you in the next video.